over the NOAA 2024 hurricane season outlook because it was just released minutes ago. The meeting started around 10 a.m. and it wrapped up at 11 a.m. So we now have the outlook for the season, and I'll tell you that it is the strongest outlook that they have released thus far. So typically, on average, let's start off with this. So on average, we usually have about 14 named storms, 7 of those being hurricanes, and then 3 out of those 14 being major hurricanes, which would be a Category 3 or stronger. Now, the outlook for this year, this was released by NOAA, again, the federal government saying this is what they predict, and again, it's their strongest prediction yet, where they're looking at a forecast of 17 to 25 named storms. This could be any type of tropical system, but out of those named storms, hurricanes, they're expecting 8 to 13 hurricanes. And then out of that number, we're expecting major hurricanes 4 to 7. And again, that's NOAA's season outlook. And this was just released today. But if we compare it to some other outlooks, there's a couple organizations that put outlooks out of their own. You may remember this one, Colorado State University. This was released a couple months ago, and the forecast they had, again, the average numbers are staying the same because that's the data that we have, right? That's our historical data. But the forecast that Colorado State put out, 23 named storms, 11 of those being hurricanes, and then 5 of those being a Category 3 or stronger, being a major hurricane. And then we have another outlook that we can check out here. North Carolina State, again, the average numbers are the same. I would say the North Carolina State is a little bit closer to NOAA's, where they have 15 to 20 named storms that they are expecting. Out of those, hurricanes 10 to 12, and then major hurricanes, they are looking at a little bit less here, 3 to 4. So if you're wondering how our tropics are looking right now, they have been very quiet. However, and this is nothing to get alarmed about, but we do have an area that we're keeping watch on. This is in the Western Atlantic. It's actually just north of Cuba and the Dominican Republic. And this is just an area of unorganized, it's a cluster of thunderstorms and some unsettled weather. So we want to keep our eye on this to see if anything develops from this. And right now, there's a 10% chance of development over the next 2 days and over the next several days, over the next week. So this is a system that we're just going to keep in mind and keep a watch on it. But right now, it's not posing any major threat. It's just bringing some rain down to the Dominican Republic and north of Cuba, actually east of Cuba too. So that is something we're going to keep our eye on. We have not had a named system yet this year, but it is in history. We have seen named systems ahead of that June 1st tropical season start date. Again, remember, we're only a couple days away, a couple weeks away from that June start date when we start to see things ramp up in the tropics. Okay, one of the reasons why NOAA is saying that we could have one of our most impactful years, one of our strongest years, they're looking for more storms to be named, would be the sea temperatures. Right now, we are having sea temperatures that are way above average compared to previous years, how we normally sit this time of the year. You can see surface temperatures, especially in the Gulf Basin, are in the lower 80s right now, and that affects us, right? And it gets a little bit warmer as you head down towards past Cuba, right where that system is right now, actually, 84, 86 degrees. And then in the Atlantic Basin, we have temperatures that do start to drop off. The Mid-Atlantic Basin drop off into the mid-70s. But this is something that we don't want to see this early in the season. What's happening here? One of the reasons, another reason why we're looking at a stronger outlook is we're starting to see El Nino fade and La Nina is starting to form. So La Nina is when the winds blow near the equator away from the America's colder water to rise toward the surface. This is important. Fewer thunderstorms, but look at this. We have warmer than normal temperatures for El Nino, and that's on the Pacific side. So the Pacific usually sees more storms out that way. And we also have a cool and wet pattern when we're set up in El Nino. So El Nino is starting to fade away. La Nina is what we have to pay attention to because that's when we're starting to see less wind shear. And then we're starting to see more activity out our way in the Atlantic, weaker upper level winds, and that adds to that threat of those storms forming. Because remember, these tropical systems, they're heat engines. They love that warmer water. And if they have less wind shear, well, that's even better because they can really take their time and start to build and generate and become these strong tropical systems that we don't like to see. As we look at our La Nina versus El Nino hurricanes in the past 30 years, we have had a more active season when we have been under that La Nina pattern. And I know there's a lot of lines on there, those spaghetti plots, they can really disorient you. So looking on our 2024 Atlantic hurricane names, again, we don't have anything checked off at this time because the hurricane season starts June 1st, and thankfully we haven't had any named storms just yet. It's just that area that we're watching, we're starting to monitor, that is in the Caribbean right now. And we're just going to see if we get any development now that has a 10% chance, again, next 48 hours and next several days. It could develop, but it has a very low probability at this time. All right, so typical tropical origins. We always talk about this June start date, and then we know the season ends in November. That doesn't mean that we couldn't see some development ahead of that June 1st date or after that November date. In fact, some of the stronger storms we've seen in the past have been, it all depends where you are, have been towards the beginning of the season and towards the end of the season, just in different parts of the world. So November, you do see this area highlighted in blue. That's typically where we see a little bit more activity. And this is going into a previous track, so we don't want that. But live TV, that happens, right? So tropical alerts, this is something that we would typically see if there was a storm going on our tropical tracker, but we don't have any active storms at this time. Here we are back to the sea surface temperatures. Again, we keep driving this home because this is one of the major deciding factors why we're starting to see all these outlooks, not just by NOAA released today, the federal government, but also other organizations like Colorado State, where they're saying, hey, this could be a very active season. We're saying that because these sea surface temperatures are warmer than normal, not something that we like to see, especially this early in the season, because again, these tropical systems really like that warm water. And if we have weaker wind shear, which is what comes with El Nino, one of the factors, that's when we have basically the perfect setup for these tropical systems to begin. And once the ball starts rolling, you know how it goes. Okay, so, all right, this is what I wanted to show you earlier. This is the typical origins that we see. So August, we start to see this area, see it highlighted in yellow, and these are the tracks that we normally see it take. This is just based off of climate data. And I want to go to the different months, but it keeps dropping out on me there, so that's okay. Saharan dust, this is one of the factors that can limit our development for tropical systems, and that's because that dust, think of it like a Pac-Man, it kind of eats away at all the moisture. Well, unfortunately at this time, and the Saharan dust comes off the coast of Africa and travels over right where we watch for development. We always look for development in the Atlantic Basin, right? Well, sometimes we'll have the Saharan dust that's so strong and potent, it really helps inhibit that tropical development. But at this time, the Saharan dust, unfortunately, is not looking very strong. Now, we will have that outlook posted by NOAA today. Again, the meeting just wrapped up about 15-20 minutes ago. If you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to us. We would be happy to answer them. We also have a hurricane specialist coming up towards the end of the month. We have that date that's online as well. And for anybody that speaks Spanish, we also have some of these graphics that's available in Spanish for you as well. So once again, thank you for tuning in to 10 Tampa Bay Plus. We appreciate you watching. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate.